Jerry, there's only one thing that I want to say before we start this great show on this Feel Good Friday. Merry Buckmas! It's Buckmas in July! The Mets are on a heater, Jerry! It has happened! They swept the Diamondbacks! They are on fire! And to boot, you mentioned I get home last night, I put on the Yankees. They're down 8-0 before you can blink. Yankees are done. The Mets are on the rise. They will be in the playoffs, Jerry. You and I now know it. This team is back. Buckmas in July. Yes, I couldn't wait to say that. What an easy wake up today, Jared. That alarm went off at 4 a.m. I was bouncing out of bed.
You walked in. What a show we've got. This is going to be great.
Right, you're like, what are you talking about?
Well, I didn't realize that Sal on Tuesday that was talking about the Yankees overtaking the Rays in the AL East, that on Friday he would say they're done. D-O-E-N, done, as the famous Jerome would say back in the day.
They got spanked. Look, this is all kidding aside. We did talk about it yesterday. How that was an important game.
That was bad.
Now, as far as the team goes, it wasn't really a team loss. That's on Severino.
Absolutely.
That's a major concern. Yeah. But that's an ugly one for the Yanks. And the Orioles did their job.
Sure did.
All they had to do was split. So that's a bad series for the Yankees. But even with that, that they are so confusing with the Yankees.
I agree.
If we may for a second. Like, how do you watch this team and you think, man, they're done without Judge. They're not going to be any good. But yet they're still over 500. They still win the series. Like, a bad week for them is splitting a series. Although in this particular case with the team in front of them, I did think they needed more. It was ugly. Ultimately, long term, I still think the Yankees will be fine. But for a night, Chair, it was fun to watch the Yankees get pounded. The sports gods were alive last night.
Shut up with the sports
Yankees
gods.
got pounded, and it is Buckmas in July. That Anthony in Belleville, he was on to something, Jer. I love that guy.
You've stolen the phrase.
That's right. Well, I made the phrase. He helped me. He reminded me how good it was.
Not Buckmas in July.
That is true.
That was his phrase that you did not like the other day, and all of a sudden it's Buckmas in July.
I didn't get it, but now I know what he meant. And now I'm running with it, baby.
I'm telling you, it really is. The baseball season is just bizarre. Up, down, up, down. 1 week great, 1 week terrible. And in this case, with the Yankees, it was Severino giving you nothing. I mean, nothing last night. That third inning was insane.
Pitching BP.
There was a point, maybe it was, I think, the fourth inning or the fifth inning, I forget, where Kay and O'Neill and Michael basically said, you know what, this game's kind of over. This can be your play-by-play debut. And O'Neill goes, I got nothing to say. He goes, this team's right now because, and then they were discussed kind of what we were talking about. When they take the first two games, they had a real opportunity to make some traction moving up the standings a little bit going into the weekend against the Cubs. And then you go into the All-Star break. And then who knows, you give Judge another week or two or a month, whatever it takes. If he comes back this season, you try to be a little optimistic in that regard. And then they lose that third game, and the whole idea was fair enough. You took two out of the first three, now go win the series. And to not even have a chance in that game, I mean, I would say by 8 o'clock, the game's over.
Right. Because I legit walked in, like usually on the way home. Sometimes I'll flip on the game, but sometimes I listen to music, or my wife's on the phone for a half hour. I'm like, I'm going to be home in an hour, please. Let me just listen to music. My God, shut up. What is there that you can't wait? We got to talk about it now for half? And then they say, So whatever. I get lost in the music.
Look at this way. You can sit down and with nice peace and quiet when you get home.
Yeah, right, exactly. At least I'll have time for myself when I get home. Sure, the dog's going nuts, the baby's screaming, running up, whatever. If so, I'm eating dinner, or just warm up the dinner. I put on, because the baby's watching TV before she goes to bed, so I put on the iPad of the game. I see 8-0 in the third inning. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So, that game was over right around 8 o'clock, which you feel for the fans. Who that's a tough one. You pay, you invest, the time it takes to go to the ballpark all day, you're excited for it. You get there, that game is over in the third inning.
Very quickly. And then they didn't really give you much the rest of the way offensively. Not that at 8-0 or 12-0 or whatever it was. Not that you're coming back from that. I mean, it's rare to have, but even just to score some runs and I thought that was the type of game you look at where even if, all right, you're down a boatload of runs early, even if you could put up 5 or 6 runs just to say, you know what, there was no quit. We had the fight. Now we'll come back against the Cubs.
Nothing.
And I know it's also the type of game where you just, you brush it aside, you move on. Those games happen. But there was just nothing to feel good about after last night's game. Nothing.
What about the poor play in left field? Like, look, I know it was Severino.
I know.
IKF taking some bad angles there. Like, that's part of the problem when you don't have and I know IKF has been good here in his role.
In spots he has,
Yeah,
yes.
but that is part of the problem when you got an infielder playing the outfield. This is the New York Yankees. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah.
He's running around there. He doesn't know what he's doing.
You also had that play that we pointed out the other night that was catchable where he kind of overran a little bit and then it was like kind of behind him. And it goes for a hit because he doesn't get a glove on it. And I guess a tough play. But, yeah, I mean, those are plays good Major League outfielders make.
That's something the BC Mets used to do before Cohen put guys in the outfield that didn't belong there, like trying to make it all starts. See, this is not a this year problem. For example, with IKF, it starts with last year thinking he was a starting shortstop where he wasn't. They made a mistake. Not only Josh Donaldson, but you could throw him in there too. That trade, you bring in Donaldson, you bring in IKF thinking he's a shortstop. He's not. Now you got to move him to the outfield because you don't have a left fielder. It's like the trickle-down effect, and these things add up. I'm not excusing Severino, but a fly ball to left field, guy takes a bad angle, turns it into a two-run double, whatever it is.
Can change things a little bit.
Yeah, it can. It should have been out.
Yep. I agree. And it's kind of what we were discussing the other day about the Mets in terms of, I think it was a caller that brought it up, where it's starting to feel like certain guys have roles and they know their roles. He's the type of guy, his role, at least to me, IKF as we're talking about, he's a utility guy.
Right.
If you need a spot start in the outfield, fair enough, but you can't live with him there every day. If you need him to give you a spot start somewhere in the infield, you can do that with him, but he shouldn't be there every day. To me, he can catch once in a while if you need him to do that. That's what he is to me, not an everyday type of player.
I'd rather have him be a third if you're going to do. And by the way, the Yankees, too, missing a pop-up with LeMahieu
They look like a bad baseball team last night.
Yeah, that was a bad one. And again, I don't think long-term it's like, oh, wow, the Yankees got pounded by the Orioles. They're in big trouble. I think that's more on Severino than anything else. But there were some signs within that game that weren't very pretty. As for IKF, wouldn't you rather see him just play third base? His bat has been pretty good. He's been productive. We know he can play third base at a high level, being that he won a Gold Glove there a couple years ago. I get what they're trying to do with him, but again, you have a learning curve at the major league level. And this is the New York Yankees, a team that wants to go out there and win a World Series. It just, you can't have those little things, and they add up on a night like that. And their offense is no good. We know that without Aaron Judge, their offense has been a problem. I don't know how this Yankees team wins series. I don't know how they're over 500. How is it even possible? We sit here, we watch them beat the Mariners 2 out of 3. We watch them beat the Rangers 2 out of 3. And I guess outside of that, they lost 2 out of 3 to the Cardinals. And even the Orioles, they're winning those first 2 games from the Orioles, where they should have won 3 or 4 minimum.
I think the answer is they're good. They're not a great team. They're good. And that, there's nothing wrong with that. They're not a bad team. They're not a great team. They're somewhere in the middle. They're without Judge, I think they are what they are. They're about a 500 team, which, again, I have said for weeks and weeks, if they can play 500 baseball until he comes back,
right,
or if they make a move at the deadline and they can bring in some more offense, which they clearly need. That's another thing last night. You're getting blown out. That's the type of game maybe Rizzo snaps out of it with a maybe meaningless home run in terms of the box score and the record, but for him to see that home run swing again and kind of break out, and that didn't happen. They're an average team right now. They're not a bad team, and there's nothing wrong with that, but until they're at full strength, it's not that long ago. It's 48 hours ago that you were talking about Harrison Bader being the most important Yankee right now. Okay. I mean, fair enough, but he can't do it alone.
Right.
Gleyber Torres had a great day the other night, but he hasn't had a great season. I mean, you can go around the diamond and just look and find what's wrong and what's right with this team. If Giancarlo Stanton is swinging the bat, then all of a sudden the offense looks a lot better and people around him do better things because all of a sudden he's a much more feared hitter. Right now, I don't know what Giancarlo Stanton is at this point because he looks like he should be hitting 55 home runs a year and driving in 130 runs, and that's not what he is.
And you're right. A couple of days ago, I'm looking at the Yankees saying, this team can make a run at the race. And I really believe
I know you did.
And I still do believe that that's possible with this team. However, it can change quickly. And now you look at the wild card standings, they're tied with Toronto. They're right there with Houston. The Red Sox aren't too far behind. It's plausible to think that, again,
that's what I was saying to you the other day.
Yeah, I don't think they're missing a postseason, but it is plausible to think, hey, if you guys don't wake up here and clean this up. Now, we talk about the Mets with the deadline. Yankees have to fix some things here. Forget about Judge because he's not there right now. It is plausible to think this team could be on, maybe miss the postseason.
This is, if you go back to, and we had some fun with this the other day with George, this is the type of team and where they're at in the standings right now. He'd be all in doing anything he could to convince the Angels for Ohtani at the deadline. You know that, and I know that. Now, this is not those Yankees anymore. These are not those teams. I'm not saying any of that, but that's how things have changed. And like Ohtani, which we can talk about at some point later, because things are changing there in Los Angeles too. Like, you don't even hear the Yankees even mentioned in possible destinations for him. So things have changed for that team.
Well, they said, too, the same as the Mets, that they're not going to make – they didn't say flat out that they wouldn't trade for him specifically, but they
It'd
said
be more of a free agent deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They're not going to make that type of trade in season. And we talk about the Yankees going, maybe the wrong way in the standings. Look who's climbing up the standings. I told you, going to the All-Star break, the Mets would leapfrog some of those teams where when we started doing these shows this week, there were only 3 teams behind the Mets in the National League. Now, all of a sudden, the Pirates have been leapfrogged. The Cubs have been leapfrogged. They are tied with the Padres, who they will start a huge 3-game series.
And San Diego has just won 3 in a row.
Hey, gives me goosebumps, Jared. This is it. Let's go here.
It's a big weekend.
Plow right through. 3, sweep them. So I want to sweep at least 2 out of 3. But, Jared, you beat this Padres team here. And Mets all of a sudden right there. They're still 6.5 back, but just fewer teams in front of them now for that wild card.
All right, so a couple things here. Number one, you've got Verlander going tonight. So,
yes.
All right, good start to this series.
And Max on Sunday.
And Scherzer on Sunday, which we know. This would be the, I don't want to say line in the sand. That's not the right way to, because you could lose tonight and win the next 2. You still win the series. But it would show me a lot if they could beat you, Darvish. I mean, Darvish starting tonight for the
He's so good.
Yeah, and he has really controlled them in big spots.
Yeah, postseason last year. Yeah.
Absolutely. So not only do you start with I don't want to say a red-hot Padres team, because the Mets have won 5 straight. Not a heater till they get to 8, by the way. The Padres have won 3 in a row. Tonight, it's very similar teams that were going in very similar directions now seem to be on the up a little bit. Now they collide for 3.
Oh, it's great.
The team that comes out of this with 2 wins, if not all 3, is going to feel real good about themselves going into the break.
Yeah, because they'll be ahead of the other one going into the All-Star break. And you're right, they're mirror images really of each other. Spent a lot of money. We're in the postseason a year ago. Obviously, the Padres bested the Mets. But here they are with a disappointing first half, both with an identical record, right there in the standings, battling for a wild card spot. This is a huge series, and the Mets again. Please, pretty please, sports guys. Again, they have it lined up the way that they need to in a big series. Verlander and Scherzer will be pitching in this series. There is no excuse not to take 2 out of 3. Plus, they're hot. You don't want to say heater because it's not 8 in a row yet.
Nah.
Fine. I think they're
on a winning streak.
5 in a row, Jed, the way that they're doing it.
It's a winning streak.
And how about the fact that Carrasco goes 8 innings?
Yeah.
That gives me a sports semi, Jared. You got Alvarez going nuts, Lindor going nuts. 8 innings from the starters in back-to-back games.
Back-to-back games.
Sports semi. I couldn't be more excited. Are you kidding me? Oh, that's what dreams are made of. 8 innings from Carrasco. So the fact that their bullpen is rested, I know it's not very good, but still the bullpen rested the last 2 nights. You get those type of starts. Verlander needs to do his thing tonight against this Padres team.
Complete opposite of what we've seen much of the season, where the starter goes 4 or 5 innings, and then we need 19 guys to come out of the bullpen to finish a game.
That's a good day. Usually 3 1/3 or whatever.
How about that? 8 innings. You got 6 from Scherzer. And then you got 8 and 8, right? It was 6 from Scherzer? Yes, 6 from Scherzer, then 8 and 8 from Senga and Carrasco. And for Carrasco, who's been an early inning gas can, the fact that you actually got some runs a little early on in that game certainly helps settle in, and he goes 8 innings.
Well, that's the other thing, that when this team was going well last year, and even I think back to like 99, when the Mets always had a good offense early on, the top of the order getting the job done, especially on the road. You're up first, you want to set the tone. 2 outs, Lindor gets the base hit, and then, or triple Lindor, right, in the first inning.
How about the fact he's never had 5 hits in a game before?
I didn't know that. I think
it was his first career, either 5-hit game or 5-for-5 game, whatever. The point is he had never done, because he's had I know he's not a 35-year-old player, but he's had a nice career, and to think he's never had 5 hits or a 5-for-5 game yet?
Yeah, and now he's found it. And I got the feeling watching him, because he's a guy, we know the talent that he has, right? But he's a guy who also talked about putting a lot of pressure on himself. Now with them winning a little bit, you feel like guys can maybe relax. And I think that's what's happening. Lindor now, as opposed to putting too much pressure on himself, relaxing. He's performing. Alonso comes up, hits the big home run. And right then and there, you're thinking, I know Carrasco's on the mound, and the part of me did think, you know what, you shouldn't get too excited early on. But that does set the tone, and it shows you this team is playing at a totally different level right now. I know it's just 1 week and 5 games. They're playing at a totally different level.
Yeah, and that's the baseball season because they have a bad weekend, and all of a sudden on Monday, they're dead again. And that's kind of the way it goes. I mean, hell, the Yankees you just called dead after you...
Well, realistically, they're not. But for effect.
Of course they're not.
Yeah.
But for effect.
But
that's how
they're done, Jerry.
That is how we react from day to day.
The Mets are... Well, I know, but I do think there's a difference in just winning a series and looking good. Like the Giants series was okay. They won a series. You know, they should have really swept that series with that Friday night game. But need to see a little bit more. This series in Arizona, the last 2 wins in particular. The first win, good, but a little shaky, and Scherzer wasn't good.
That second win, though.
Beautiful. The last 2, well, that's the one, Alvarez saving a game.
Yeah.
And then, but even the pitching performance from Kodai Senga.
Oh, sure.
And then to have that backed up last night with another 8-inning start from Carrasco, the early offense, the onslaught, everybody getting it done. They're playing at a different level right now. It's
nice that they tacked on the way they did last night in terms of finishing the series in the sweep, because had they lost last night, you would sit there and say, you know what, they got away with one in the middle game. They probably should have.
Right.
Well,
that's the game that they would have lost, and they would have won 2 out of 3, fine, but they stole that one, ended up taking that, putting the foot on the throat. Hey, it's not just winning a series either or sweeping a series. Diamondbacks are good.
First place.
First place Diamondbacks in their building.
With really good crowds. Really good crowds as well.
That June swoon is in the rear view. It is Buckmas in July, Jerry.
They gonna lose a game in July, Sal?
I don't know. Hey, like Buck said, I wouldn't bet against them. It'll make you look like a fool.
5-0 in July for the Mets so far.
Keep it going. Hey, all I care about right now, I obviously they got to win this series with the Padres. You hate to say the one game at a time thing. That's cliche for them. I want Verlander to go be a big boy tonight. Give a huge start, get the first win, and then all you need to do is split. Even if they lost one of these games, I'd be fine with that. Obviously, you'd love to sweep, but if they did sweep going to the All-Star break, this town would be on fire.
Agreed.
Because now you're talking legit heater, and you're talking feeling really good about this team and excited about what's to be in the second half. But even 2 out of 3, I think, will do the job and kind of stabilize things for this Mets team that's still 5 games under 500, but realistically now has a shot at the wild card.
And looking like the team we saw last year.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest thing to me.
Correct. It's not just that they're getting hot playing good baseball. It's not the A's or the Pirates here. This is a team that has a 101-win season to their resume a year ago that is now starting to resemble that team.